Karen.
Always run in if you have an opportunity, regardless of what the tether looks like. Well, thank you for the lovely welcome. It was such a delightful surprise to see a couple of familiar faces here in the room, so thank you for the gracious welcome. And my goal is to impart something on you that might inspire your writing experience to go to a different level. So thank you for coming. So can everyone see this okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you're in the right place if time is an issue for you. Whether you're always looking for it, or you get it and then it slips through your fingers. If there's never enough time to write, and anyone who's got a passion for writing can probably make that claim, that there's just never enough time to write. And you're also in the right place if the inner critic ever sits on your shoulders and tells you that what you produce is not good, is not meaningful, or won't change lives. You're also in the right place if you know that you're here to leave a legacy of some kind. Stories are one of the most beautiful ways to leave a legacy. There are far too many things that leave with us that we don't share with other people. And lastly, if you know that what you have inside you can help someone else transform, your experiences, regardless of what kind of writing you're here to produce, it will make a difference. Because people read fantasy to escape. Escapism can be very healthy in certain doses. But everyone needs a way to unwind and to relax, and stories can do that. Stories can also inspire people to make serious changes in their lives that they might not otherwise. How many of you have been inspired by someone that you heard speaking, or a book that you read, a video that you saw? I was going to say, if there's no hands that go up in the room, then the right thing for you is out there. You just haven't found it yet, but it's out there. It's out there. Because every story matters, regardless of whether or not you've ever thought in your life. And here's a good question: how many have ever thought, "Oh, nobody's going to want to read my story. Who's going to care? Will it be good enough? Do I really want to put it out there? What if it's good? What if I succeed? What if they get to know the real me?" A lot of times that scares the bejesus out of people. I don't know about you, but my writings transformed significantly over time because of that wall, that safety. It's like, oh, I'm nice, I'm good back here. Nobody can really see what's going on in here. Stories impact people, whether it's your story or whether it's someone else's story. Or whether, then there's someone else. This could be the person that's sitting next to you. This could be a person who is in a distant family. It could be a group of people that maybe you networked with once or twice. Everyone's story has the power to impact and to influence other people, even if it's just a tiny calibration in the way that they think. How many people have ever cooked on a gas stove? Okay, so you know that the flame adjusted ever so slightly can either make or break a dish, right? Mm-hmm. A little too much heat, it's toast. Not enough, takes too long, ends up being rubbery or whatever the case. So I bring that up just because it's important to know the difference that a slight calibration can make. And that can be, and when it comes to your writing, it can be the way that you think about something. If you just approach it from a slightly different perspective, that can make all the difference. Mm-hmm. That calibration can be in your body, from as simple as dropping your shoulders a little bit more. Because if you write a lot, and you sit in front of a computer all the time, and everything is not in line, that will impact the body. Has anyone else ever suffered from the chronic shoulder attached to the ear syndrome? Yes. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how, no matter how conscious your thoughts are when it happens, and then you It's like practicing yoga and mountain pose, and you make an effort to make a change, and then 5 minutes later, oh, how did that happen? I didn't realize it. But it's almost like the body has this muscle memory, and it just goes back to where it was before. So the slightest calibration will make an enormous difference. And your stories might impact people outside of the realm of books. Books are one piece of it. I mean, for me, once things started flowing, then they really started flowing. But the work that I do, it impacts people in a multitude of ways, just like yours. You may write a book, but you may also go give a talk somewhere. You may get this connection with people and feel where they're coming from and be able to tap into what their pain is and make an impact that way. Maybe your book gets turned into an audiobook and people listen to it while they're driving to work or wherever it is they're going. Maybe you get interviewed on TV or on radio. Maybe you take the pieces of your book and you turn it into a blog. Newsletter pieces. I mean, there's a multitude of ways that your work can get out there. So you never know exactly how your work will get out there and influence the world. One of my ways is books. There's a lot of other very unconventional ways that I do things. So the women's circles were mentioned. Which one's the razor? So that one is an enormous drum that I work with, and rattles and ceremony, and circles where sometimes I talk and incorporate meditations. So there's lots of different ways to get a person to the desired outcome. But ultimately, so right here, it's about comfort. It's about inspiring people and helping them feel like they aren't alone. I don't know what kind of support system each of you have outside of this room, because this is an extraordinary community of people who want to write. But there may be some of you who, once you walk out of this room, that maybe the people that you're surrounded with don't believe in your writing as strongly as everyone else here. You need community to thrive. You need other people to believe in your work, sometimes even more than you do. Because on those days when you're ready to close the computer, to throw the pen, to rip up the paper, to run down the road screaming, or whatever the case may be, that's when you need someone to say, your work matters. You need to tell that story. I know that you'll make an impact by sharing things with people. So community is important. I've had the privilege of speaking in all different kinds of communities. So you heard the Medicine Woman piece, and I'll tell you that I have been able to speak in front of corporate groups, like the Human Resource Association of Connecticut. Can you imagine, walking in with the long hair and getting a little woo-hoo on them and, talking about Medicine Woman piece. But you bring a certain piece of yourself, just enough, that's authentic, but yet doesn't overwhelm people. And people will be receptive. But if you just push more down their throat than they're willing to take in, well, then you realize the kind of impact that will have. They'll shut down. It's like a conversation that you have with someone, and the tone isn't right, and it sounds more like you're blaming them for something. They're not going to listen. So the message gets out there in a multitude of ways. I don't know if you've presented this question to people today, but I want you to think for a moment why you write. I would love to hear from a couple of people if that answer is at the tip of your tongue while you're thinking about it. I write because of all of these people. I was going to say it started with this guy, but it really started with my mother. But he's the reason the first book came out. For me, writing it wasn't a thing I wanted to do, it was something I had to do. When it moves beyond want to need, to the fact that if you don't write, what's going to happen? I mean, that's a form of self-expression, whether you write something because you're angry and you couldn't possibly have that conversation with someone, and then you crumple it up and you burn it, or you tear it to shreds, or whatever it is that, that you need to do with it. Writing will help get you from one place to the next. So I write to, I guess first and foremost, to honor my mother. She was killed in a car accident when I was 18 months old. I never got to know her. It wasn't until a few years ago that I found out I was in the car next to her when she was killed. And it was one of those trips in the jungle in Peru where I had a teacher that had they asked us to ask a question. So we were in very sacred ceremony. And I'm not real huge on going to see tarot card readers and psychics and all that kind of thing. So I looked at this as one of these. It was like, oh no, not this. I can't do this. I can't do this. But I thought, well, look at all this money you invested to come down here. Look at all the travel. You're in a community of other people who are also here doing this, this sacred ceremony. Why don't you just suck it up and do what you're asked? So I did. And out of nowhere, I asked my mother how she could have abandoned me. Have you ever said something where you turn around and you just went like, who said that? That wasn't me. Because I've never come across as the victim, although I've been abandoned a multitude of times in my life. And in that very moment, as soon as that thought came into my mind, she was everywhere. She was in the sand. She was in the blanket that I was sitting on. She was in the air, and the fire, and the stars. And down there, the Milky Way looks like you can reach your hand up and grab some of it. It's so pristine. And she was in every cell of my being. And she said to me, I didn't abandon you. If I did, you would have died that day. And it was at that moment that the responsibility that was on my shoulders to do what I'm here to do became not like this, not like this. My arms can't even extend that far. It became enormous. So I write because my life was spared. I write because someone here, this gentleman, believed in me and told me my first book would be done within 6 months. First draft was done. The rest of it took about another 6 months, but he was 6'4", blonde hair and blue eyes, so that's a whole other story we don't have time to get into. The second book was Women Rising, was just a total download and inspiration from concept to book in hand, 45 days. The last one, Keep It Real, which is, it talks about why we're afraid to speak up and what to do about it. That was done in 30 days. When you've got something that has to get out there, it has to get out. You can't hold it in because it's going to start eating away at you. And that's probably why some of you write. So anybody care to share why they write yet? A few words? Yes.
I feel as though internally I'm sort of dying unless I'm doing something creative, and that for me is writing. I feel as though it's, the day is wasted. And I've got to write. I really need to, because that's where I get energy from doing that.
No, thank you, Roxana. Yes, it becomes, it's more than a passion.
Yeah.
Like if you don't, then all of a sudden you can't sleep.
Wasting away.
Exactly.
What I feel. Mm-hmm.
Anyone else like to share why they write? Yes, it's Mary.
It's Mary, yes. It's similar to that, but the words that came to me are, there's like this intensity in me, and if I don't, it's the only way it can come out is if I write.
Mm-hmm.
No other way.
Have you ever tried standing in front of someone and just looking them in the eye?
Mm-hmm.
It takes certain people to be able to receive that, because that is an immense, it's very intense. Because they say the eyes are the windows to the soul. There was a time when I could not do that. Now I'm a master at it, because you can convey empathy for another person's journey and story. You can feel where they are. But it's a beautiful thing. I challenge you to try it sometime and see how long it takes you to look away.
I would say that if I did that, they would probably say to me, "What are you looking at?"
Well, and we'll talk to that. That's a good segue for something that we're going to get into a little bit more when other people begin to question, and then the questions that we also have. One more? Yes.
Oh, it's funny that you mentioned that because I've been to the Mercy Center once before for a retreat, and that was one of the exercises to look directly into sunlight. It was very tough, very tough. I don't think I'm there. That was already years ago, but anyway, I write so that I can figure things out and express like emotions and events sort of some way in a pristine, true way, so that I can convey something or understand it in the most true way possible.
Well, thank you. I write to think about things also. One of my favorite things to do is to get one of those 24 by 36, big pads of, the tear off pads that's used for presentations. My philosophy is the bigger the paper, the bigger the idea. You have more room. So you can just, you can write this way, and you can go this way, and I mean, you can play, and you can have fun, you can be creative. And it's not as confining as 8.5 by 11. I mean, geez, how big can one grow in that size of piece of paper? So, so bigger the paper, the better. All right, so here's what we are going to cover today. How to get more quality writing time. Is that of interest to anyone?
Yeah.
And the value of celebrating. And I'm really looking forward to the expressions that I see when we get to that point. And the boundaries of the mind, the body, and the spirit, and how that applies to your writing. And overcoming vulnerability. Just on the off shot that might have come up a time or two when you were starting to write. And then lastly, the vibration of your writing. I'm a medicine woman. I couldn't leave that piece out. So we're going to talk a little bit about vibration. Okay, so the first thing, more quality time for writing. Who'd like more of that? I can't tell you how many times I had scheduled time for writing. So now I have the good fortune of working from home, but it wasn't always that way. So, and one of my former lives, so where I know Jessie May from, I came from a background in the construction industry. So I was working 50 hours a day and doing my Save the World piece on the nights and the weekends. It can get a little exhausting. So I would pick a day, or I would set a time to write, and then I would say, when I get this time, this is going to be so amazing. Like the clouds are going to part, the sun is going to come down and shine on me, everything's going to be perfect, and I am going to pump out some serious material. Then the time comes, and this is what happens. I'd be so exhausted that once I had that time, it was almost like my body just said, I can't write. I got nothing to give you. And then I'd start feeling bad. Then I'd start beating myself up because you made this time. Look at how much it took you to get here. You're wasting it. You're not using it. What's the matter with you? Don't you value the quality of your own work? The inner critic kept going. Would not be quiet. And then if I say I give myself an hour, I might go through that process for 20 or even 30 minutes. And then what am I left with? I'm exhausted, I'm not feeling very good about myself, and then I'm going to try and write? Doesn't work so well. So here's an exercise I challenge you to do the next time you have time to write. So this keyword, time, I invite you to dispel anything that you ever associated with time before. As you're probably used to thinking about time in a linear fashion. 12 to 12:15 to 12:30 to 12:45 to 1 o'clock. What if you looked at time as something you didn't have to worry about? Something that was this magical space in which you didn't need to look at a clock. So maybe you set an alarm and you put it somewhere where you can't see it. You turn off your phone or all the notifications that come up on your phone. Oh, you got a Facebook message. Oh, you got an email. Oh, you got a text. All those things that can distract you. And what if you came to your writing from the place of, I know I'm going to create something extraordinary, and I will fully accept whatever it is. I am completely unattached from the outcome of what I'm going to produce. I am just going to produce. So if you took the time factor out of it, you could feasibly experience 15, 30, 45 minutes as several hours. Because once you detach from the outcome, meaning that you might get yourself so worked up and thinking that you have to produce this. Okay, I have a deadline, I gotta get this done, gotta. And then you just get so wound up that everything gets really tense. Now, one of the things about tense shoulders is that it blocks the flow of things up to the brain. So the more tense you are, the more restricted you will be in thought and creativity. So if you're stressing yourself out and then you sit down to write, I mean, that just like totally defeats the purpose. So what if you were to approach writing? So say you have, I imagine that you all have a space that you prefer to write in. Maybe it's inside, maybe it's outside under a tree, maybe it's in a tree. I've written in trees before. Maybe it's in your car, maybe it's in the library. Well, what if you approached getting to that space, wherever it is you're going to write, and then you said, you sent a little prayer to whomever you consider creator. And it may go something like, thank you for giving me the wisdom to write. Thank you for planting these ideas in me. But I need your help now. I know you didn't just give me this so it could sit here and fester in me and make me crazy until I can get it out of my fingers and on paper. So help me. Help me be a clear channel, help me be a conduit. Help me convey the message that you have planted in me in the clearest way possible for people to be inspired. It doesn't have to be that long. I mean, it could be a 5-second or a 10-second prayer or an incantation or whatever, a mantra or an intent. Call it whatever you like. But that's setting the stage for your writing. So if you have a great place to write, if you set the stage by putting your intent out there for what you want to do, and you break away or detach yourself from the outcome and fully trust that what you produce is exactly what was supposed to come out of you, you will find more quality time to write. Because practically by default, by doing those things, whatever you're supposed to produce, you will. And who's to say you might get other inspiration that will help you for the next time that you sit down to write. So it's that relationship with time and the expectations that you set for yourself that will make all the difference in the quality of writing time that you have. So let's talk about celebration. How many of you celebrate your successes? Ooh, that many. That's good.
Sometimes.
Well, and I think for modern day busy people, we're like to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, whether it's grandkids, it's kids, it's spouses, it's civic groups, it's churches, it's whatever the case may be. We've always got something else to move on to and something else to move on to. I mean, does anybody have time to kill? And nothing to do? Yeah, exactly. It's like, who lives like that? Not too many people. Well, the thing with being so busy all the time is that it really deprives us of acknowledging our successes and celebrating them. I've climbed mountains, and then the next day, it'd be like, okay, what's up now? What am I doing now? And somebody would say, my husband he's really good at reminding me about that. I'd be like, well, aren't you going to celebrate that? Mm-hmm. And yeah, but that was yesterday. This is today. This is a new day. I've got more things to do. Even if you just take 5 seconds and do one of these. So, was it easy for all of you to make the time to get here? Most of you?
Yeah.
Some of you? Was there a challenge? Did you have a little scheduling you had to do? You had to make space, you know, in your work schedule and your family schedule. You had to get, you know, kids or pets or parents perhaps. I mean, you had to make some arrangements so that you could be here. But look at you all, you got here. You found a way to do something that was important to you. So that's worth celebrating. Maybe for you the celebration is in being fully present while you're here. And the fact that you're able to not worry about what's waiting for you when you get back in the car and go home. Laundry, cleaning, dinner, guests are coming, whatever the case may be. Like, oh, the dog's gonna be pissed at me because I've been keeping the dog waiting a couple extra hours to take it for a walk, whatever the case. But I invite you to celebrate your successes. And this goes for your writing too. This is not just the big things, this is the little things. So one of the things I encourage my clients to do when we start with the book process is to set your schedule for when you're going to write, block it off, and then tell people. You are not to be disturbed between this time and this time, unless the house is burning down or somebody's leg gets cut off or however dramatic you want to be with it. But make it known that this is your time to be respected. This is your sacred time. This is your work time. This is your inspiration time, whatever it is that you want to call it. But that time is sacred because you need to write. It's not a want, it's a need. And then I invite you to figure out what you're going to do to celebrate the fact that you made the commitment to write, that you kept the commitment to write, and that you fulfilled what you intended to do. Is that not worth celebrating? You make a commitment to yourself. It doesn't matter if it's sitting in a hot tub for 10 minutes if you have one, or going for a walk, or laying down on the floor playing with the dog for another 10 minutes. Or, you know, if you want to amp it up a little bit, maybe it's going and getting a pedicure, or a massage, or going out for an ice cream sundae, or a milkshake, or whatever. It could be giving yourself an extra 5 minutes to sit outside in front of a beautiful garden and look at the flowers. It doesn't have to be expensive or elaborate. But I think a lot of times we get this reward concept. You know, we get our minds wrapped up around thinking, oh, well, that means a week in Tuscany. Or, you know, the weekend, you know, with the Poconos or something. Reward is going to be monumental. It doesn't. It's the simple act of acknowledging something that you've done and recognizing it. Because the more you do that, the better you'll feel about even the littlest things that you accomplish. So I don't know about you, but I love getting those little atta-girls because it just helps keep me going. Okay, so this next topic of mine is an all-time favorite. Boundaries. How many people are really good at setting boundaries and having them kept? I think that's an area that everybody has a little bit of room for improvement. And I think a lot of times we have a difficult time setting boundaries because we feel that, you know, we are nurturers or we're here to serve, and setting a boundary and claiming something for us and not letting anyone interrupt that is selfish. And if we've been givers for a long time and people aren't used to us behaving that way, they aren't going to like it. Well, who do you think you are? All of a sudden you get an hour or 5 hours or whatever it is. They're used to you just giving, and they're not used to you setting any boundaries. Well, boundaries are set in many different ways. Boundaries of the mind. I can't do this. There is no flipping way I can do this. Is that not a boundary? The boundary of your thoughts. Just because you were not able to do something in the past does not mean you are incapable of doing it now. That's history. And history does not predict the future as much as the politicians or the government or your friends or family might like to instill in you that it does. So boundaries of the mind is being able to recognize that just because something happened in the past does not automatically mean that will happen in the future. A boundary of the mind would also be making an assumption of someone else. If you have difficult conversations that need to be held with people, and you don't have them because you're worried about the repercussions, that's a boundary. Just because you talked to somebody about something in the past doesn't mean it needs to go the same way again. But that keeps a lot of people quiet because they believe that, well, that happened this way before, it guaranteed it's going to happen again. That's not always the case. A lot of different ways that you can approach a conversation where you can really be heard. But that's another boundary of the mind. Boundaries of the body. Does anyone recognize this part of the body right here? You ever get a knot there a time or two? You get faced with something and then that fear kicks in, and that can take over the whole entire body. That's a boundary. One of the exercises that I like to do is every time that this happens, I like to imagine it as power that I am still stepping into. That it doesn't have to be fear. It's only fear if I feed it. But if I take a look at it as power, it changes the whole dynamic. And don't think for a moment that just because I'm standing up here giving a talk and I'm comfortable, that I don't have issues like that. Just last week, I was in probably one of the most fearful places I have ever been in my entire life. I'm 50. I've had a couple of decades of things to get afraid of and overcome. So just a quick story. Next week, Wednesday night, I am embarking on a 6-week road trip. I've got a pilgrimage that I'm taking in New Mexico, and this seed got planted. You know how they give you those ideas, and you think, okay, well, in the beginning it sounds like a good idea, and then as you get closer to it, you're like, oh crap, am I really gonna do this? What am I thinking? So I embraced this 6-week road trip idea, and then I said to myself, okay, well, you know what? I'll do these women's circles across the country on the way out and on the way back. I'll book talks. So I'll talk about, the book Keep It Real, and it'll be great. Now, of course, mind you, this epiphany only came a couple of weeks ago. So I was still moving through the fear of, oh crap, can I really do this? And then reaching out to people that I know and just trying to get some things set up. And so there's some stuff going on with my son. He's 28, he still lives at home. We all worry about our kids, you can't help it. So I'm thinking about the stuff that's gonna come up with him. I'm like, oh geez, is everything gonna be good, with the car? Is that big drum you saw me holding? I have to bring that. And the car that gets better gas mileage is a little 2-door Honda Civic. I haven't taken a road trip in 35 years. I've never been in a car with my husband that long. We're still kind of in the newlywed phase, it's at 4.5 years. But still, we sleep in separate rooms because he snores. So I'm going to be spending all this time with him. So that was kind of like a point of stress too. We finally had a nice long conversation, and so it's all good now. But there was like all this stuff going on. I'm like falling apart, waking up with acid reflux and just feeling like I was going to vomit left and right. It was horrible. My shoulders up to here. And I found that, that became, those were boundaries of the mind that transferred into the body. But once I fully committed and I said, you know what, that idea was given to me for a reason. I'm going to be a bull in a china shop and nothing is going to stop me. I'm doing it. So as soon as I did that, had the conversation with my husband, completely different story. Everything changed. So the boundaries of the body can be just as inhibiting as those of the mind. And also boundaries of the spirit. If we ever feel like we are alone, that can invite us to really go inward in a very unhealthy way. That can isolate us. And we're never alone. Whether you are spiritual, you're religious, you're not, you're never alone. Never alone. Any loved ones that you've lost, they're on the other side, keeping an eye on you. They're making sure that you're being looked out for. Granted, they have a sense of humor. I personally think they roll dice up there and place bets. Okay, let's throw this at them and see what they're going to do. Because some of the stuff that they throw at me, I'm like, really? Are you kidding me? I know I signed up for this. I've been doing the work for a long time, but geez, can I have a break for a week or so? And so boundaries of the spirit. The more that you can stay in community, and I don't know if you offer a way for all of these people to continue the conversation between each other, but look at what you're building here. And I know there's a handful of you that keep coming back. So community is so important because that helps to really, to just dispel any kind of a boundary that you have of the spirit. And all of those things, the one thing that they have in common is the ability to let go. To fully let go. Expectations. How many are real? How many are really horrible with having expectations because you're afraid you're going to be disappointed? I'm one of those. Decades ago, I just stopped having expectations because I couldn't handle the disappointment. I had so much going on that it's like the slightest little thing threw me off track. So if you can let go, whether you just take a deep breath, you exhale. I'm just looking, okay, guys, one of my favorite things to do, if I drink a lot of water, every time I eliminate, I energetically eliminate at the same time. So if you drink a lot of water, then you're constantly eliminating. It's an opportunity to let go of things that no longer serve you. And it's deliberate. When you're very deliberate in your actions, it can make an enormous difference. And every time that you let go, there'll be such a huge gift that's at the other side. So a quick exercise that you can do for boundaries. All you have to do is just draw a little circle on your paper. And then tonight, tomorrow, next week, whenever the case may be, find another piece of paper, make a bigger circle. Inside the circle, put things that you readily welcome into your life. No invitation required. Whether it's someone giving you a hug, it's love, it's a phone call from an old friend, flowers, coffee, lunch, dinner. I mean, it's your boundary. So you put in there whatever you want. And then outside the circle, you'll put things that you will receive only upon invitation. That will help you start setting clearer boundaries. And if you set one and it doesn't work out the first time, don't beat yourself up, no big deal. We start over again all the time. Nothing's ever perfect the first time around. And perfection, that's a whole nother talk. I can't even begin on that topic. We just don't have time for that.
We covered some of that. So.
Okay. But perfection is, that can be a real party pooper and a drainer. But, so you've got the circle. So inside is things that you readily will receive, and outside of the circle are things that are by invitation only. Let's talk a little bit about vulnerability. How many people question whether or not there are things that they ought to put in their writing because it's a touchy subject? Whether it's you or it's about someone else. How many of you that raised your hands, is that because it's your stuff? And how many because it's other people's stuff? So vulnerability, I will address this from both sides of the fence. So from it being your stuff, we feel vulnerable because we haven't connected to the power of that experience yet. When you can become empowered by that experience, instead of embarrassed or ashamed, that will change how you feel about vulnerability. When I mentioned a little bit earlier about how my writing shifted significantly, the first book, Tap Your Source, is more like a workbook for life. It gives people a lot of exercises where they're invited to take a look at situations differently. I got some great reviews. People give me some fantastic feedback on the book. People, they said things like, I read this book on the airplane on my way to a job interview. My confidence changed completely. They hired me on the spot in my job interview. I had other people quit jobs because they weren't happy. They finally had the confidence to quit a job, and then they stepped into something that made them happy. But in spite of all of those things, I still had that wall up. The writing did not reflect how deeply I was affected by the lessons I learned that inspired that writing. I was still hiding. Now, regardless of what you see on the outside, there is vulnerability. I've either worked with or am working with all of these people here, and boy, the stories that they have, some of them would absolutely break your heart. But at the same time, they would also inspire you. Just because what you see on the outside is all put together, all that in a bag of chips, doesn't mean there isn't a lot going on the inside. So vulnerability in terms of if it's someone else. I have a phrase I like to use called case study. So you could make reference indirectly about what this other person's thing is that you feel is necessary to incorporate in your writing, and you could talk about it in terms of something that you've seen instead of directly putting someone's name on it. Or it can also be it's something of your own that you aren't ready yet. You haven't crossed that bridge where now you can fully own it and put your own name on it. So you could say that this is something I've seen, or in other cases, or studies have proven, or something along those lines. So that gives you another way that you can incorporate something that has to do with another person, where you're not fully prepared. And not only that, that could be, it's a permission thing too, because I don't put a lot of things into my writing that could be very impactful in a negative way. I think probably the closest I came to that was when I talked about my son. So in Keep It Real, there's this theory about why we're afraid to speak up, and I'll say that when I found out that I was pregnant, my husband at that time was in intensive care. I found out while he was unconscious that I was pregnant. It was his own damn fault. 0.27 alcohol content on a motorcycle with no helmet. That's a whole nother story. So when I was pregnant, you talk about a lot of tension and anxiety. My son has issues with anxiety. Coincidence? I don't think so. So I was a little reserved about putting that in the book. He hasn't read it. I don't believe any of his friends have. But, so there's you can be delicate, or you can make reference to things in terms of a case study. The vibration of your writing. Now I bring this up because there's a vibration to everything, and if that's a new term for you, we're not going to do this now, but I invite you to try it sometime at home or even later, is if you were to sit down, close your eyes, and have both of your hands like this, and then gradually bring them closer and closer together, you'd feel something. Unless, of course, you're going to tell yourself, oh, that lady, she's just a total nut job, and I don't buy any of that stuff, it's too woo-hoo for me. But you can feel something. Now, and if that's a little much to absorb, has anybody ever walked into a room and there was a person in there that people were flocking around, and you thought, oh, I want to meet that person. Like they just had this energy or this aura about them. And it could be something as simple as a smile, but there was something about them that drew you in. Or by the same token, have you ever been minding your own business and then somebody walks in the room with a chip on their shoulder? There's no running from it. You can't hide. It's as though they've got this big cloud over their head and they come in and there's just no escaping. It's all the same thing. That's like vibration. So if you think for a moment that what you've got going on in here is not impacting out here, you're mistaken. So one of the phrases that is my least favorite is fake it till you make it. Because even though you may be faking it on the outside, you're not faking it on the inside. If someone is giving a speech and they're standing up in front of the audience and their words don't match their facial expressions or their body language or their intent, the audience will be confused. You won't be able to put your finger on it, but you're going to be like, something's a little off. I don't know what it is, but just something's kind of strange. So it's the vibe. It's what you're putting out. So how does vibration come into play with your writing? Writing's been a long, perhaps serendipitous journey for probably all of you at some point in time. It hasn't been as long. This road isn't exactly straight, but it has. Maybe it is kind of a straight road. Maybe it's not. Chances are it's probably not. And sometimes when you start to write, when you incorporate the pieces of yourself, you might be feeling like this. I felt like this plenty of times. And then I think, oh, but I want people to feel like this. And all the while, you're doing this, that will transfer into your writing. You can't hide it. Think of it, if vibration is too woo-hoo a term for you, then think about it like your intent. If your intent is pure, that will come through in your work. If your intent is to inspire people to live a better life or to take a risk, to take a chance, to break a habit, then be sincere, be in the optimal state of mind for writing. Now, I would be remiss if I did not admit, complete transparency here, that there have been things that I have written when I've not been in that optimal state of mind. When I've been exhausted, when I've been, really ticked off. And the body of work that's produced isn't the same quality as when I'm open and inspired and coming from a place of love. And when you can write and you're coming from that place where it's heart-centered or it's mission-centered, that makes all of the difference in the world. All the difference. See, I could be, to speak a little bit about body language and the vibe that you're putting out. I could stand here for 5 minutes and not say a word. And probably help each one of you feel good just by looking at you without saying anything. Because it's what's in here, it's my intent that that's what I'm going to do. I'm okay being open and vulnerable. It doesn't bother me. And it helps people